National Security Council, Washington, D.C., January 25th of 2001. Information. Memorandum for Condoleezza Rice. From Richard A. Clarke. Subject: Presidential Policy Initiative/Review, the Al-Qaeda Network. Steve asked today that we propose major presidential policy reviews or initiatives. We urgently need such a principal-level review on the Al-Qaeda network. Just some terrorist group? As we noted in our briefings for you, Al-Qaeda is not some narrow, little terrorist issue that needs to be included in broader regional policy. Rather, several of our regional policies need to address centrally the transnational challenge to the U.S. and our interests posed by the Al-Qaeda network. By proceeding with separate policy reviews on Central Asia, the GCC, North Africa, etc., we would deal inadequately with the need for a comprehensive multi-regional policy on Al-Qaeda. Al-Qaeda is the active, organized major force that is using a distorted version of Islam as its vehicle to achieve two goals. 1. To drive the U.S. out of the Muslim world, forcing the withdrawal of our military and economic presence in countries from Morocco to Indonesia. And 2. To replace moderate, modern Western regimes in Muslim countries with theocracies modeled along the lines of the Taliban. Al-Qaeda affects centrally our policies on Pakistan, Afghanistan, Central Asia, North Africa, and the GCC. Leaders in Jordan and Saudi Arabia see Al-Qaeda as a direct threat to them. The strength of the network of organizations limits the scope of support friendly Arab regimes can give to a range of U.S. policies, including Iraq policy and the peace process. We would make a major error if we underestimated the challenge Al-Qaeda poses, overestimated the stability of the moderate friendly regimes Al-Qaeda threatens. Pending time-sensitive decisions. At the close of the Clinton administration, 2 decisions about Al-Qaeda were deferred to the Bush administration. First, should we provide the Afghan Northern Alliance enough assistance to maintain it as a viable opposition force to the Taliban/Al-Qaeda? If we do not, I believe that the Northern Alliance may be effectively taken out of action this spring when fighting resumes after the winter thaw. The Al-Qaeda 55th Brigade, which has been key fighting force for the Taliban, would then be free to send its personnel elsewhere, where they would likely threaten U.S. interests. For any assistance to get there in time to affect the spring fighting, a decision is needed now. Second, should we increase assistance to Uzbekistan to allow them to deal with the Al-Qaeda/IMU threat? 3 other issues awaiting addressal now are: first, what the new administration says to the Taliban in Pakistan about the importance we attach to ending the Al-Qaeda sanctuary in Afghanistan. We are separately proposing early, strong messages to both. Second, do we propose significant program growth in the full year 2002 budget for anti-Al-Qaeda operations by CIA and counterterrorism training and assistance by state and CIA? Third, when and how does the administration choose to respond to the attack on USS Cole? That decision is obviously complex. We can make some decisions, such as those above, now without yet coming to grips with the harder decision about the Cole. On the Cole, we should take advantage of the policy that we will respond at a time, place, and manner of our own choosing and not be forced into knee-jerk responses. Attached is a year-end 2000 strategy on Al-Qaeda developed by the last administration to give to you. Also attached is a 1998 strategy. Neither was a covert action-only approach. Both incorporated diplomatic, economic, military, public diplomacy, and intelligence tools. Using the 2000 paper as background, we could prepare a decision paper/guide for a PC review. I recommend that you have a principled discussion of Al-Qaeda soon and address the following issues. Threat magnitude. Do the principals agree that Al-Qaeda network poses a first-order threat to U.S. interests in a number or regions, or is this an analysis a Chicken Little overreaching, and can we proceed without major new initiatives and by handling this issue in a more routine manner? 2. Strategy. If it is a first-order issue, how should the existing strategy be modified or strengthened? 2 elements of the existing strategy that have not been made to work effectively are A. Going after the Al-Qaeda's money, and B. Public information to counter Al-Qaeda propaganda. 3. The full year 2002 budget. Should we continue to fund the increases into full year 2002 for state and CIA programs designed to implement the Al-Qaeda strategy? And 4. Immediate decisions. Should we initiate the funding to the Northern Alliance and to the Uzbeks? Please let me know if you would like a decision/discussion paper or any modifications to the background paper. Concurrences by Mary McCarthy, Dan Freed, Bruce Riedel, Don Camp. Attachment. Tab A, December 2000 paper, Strategy for Eliminating the Threat from the Jihadist Networks of Al-Qaeda, Status, and Prospects. Tab B, September 1998 paper, the Pole Mill Plan for Al-Qaeda, also known as the Delinda Plan. Just a little bit of background on this. In Washington, D.C., to September 27, 2006, in a series of recent public statements, Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice has again denied that the Clinton administration presented the incoming administration of President George W. Bush with a comprehensive strategy against al-Qaeda. Rice's denials were prompted by a September 22 Fox News interview with Bill Clinton, in which the former president asserted that he had left a comprehensive anti-terror strategy with the incoming Bush administration in January of 2001. In a September 25th interview, Rice told the New York Post, "We were not left a comprehensive strategy to fight al-Qaeda," adding that nobody organized the country or the international community to fight the terrorist threat that was upon us until 9/11. The crux of this issue is a January 25th, 2001 memo on al-Qaeda from Counterterrorism Coordinator Richard Clarke to National Security Advisor Condoleezza Rice, the first terrorism strategy paper of the Bush administration, which we had just read. The document was central to the debate over pre-9/11 Bush administration policy on terrorism and figured prominently in the 9/11 hearings held in 2004. A declassified copy of the Clarke memo was first published on the web by the National Security Archive in February of 2005. Clarke's memo urgently requested a high-level National Security Council review on al-Qaeda and included two attachments: a declassified December 2000 strategy for eliminating the threat of the jihadist networks of al-Qaeda, status and prospects paper, and the September 1998 Pole Mill Plan for al-Qaeda, the so-called Delinda Plan, which remains classified. Below are excerpts from the recent statements of former President Clinton and Secretary Rice. Former President Bill Clinton on Fox News on September 22, 2006. Clinton: "And I think it's very interesting that the conservative Republicans who now say I didn't do enough claim that I was too obsessed with bin Laden. All of President Bush's neocons thought I was obsessed with bin Laden. They had no meetings on bin Laden for 9 months after I left office. All the right-wingers who now say I didn't do enough said I did too much. Same people." Wallace: "Do you think you did enough, sir?" Clinton: "No, because I didn't get him." Wallace: "Right." Clinton: "But at least I tried. That's a difference in me and some, including all the right-wingers who are attacking me now. They ridiculed me for trying. They had 8 months to try. They did not try. I tried. So I tried and failed. And when I failed, I left a comprehensive anti-terror strategy and the best guy in the country, Dick Clarke, who got demoted." Clinton: "What did I do? What did I do? I worked hard to try and kill him. I authorized a finding for the CIA to kill him. We contracted with people to kill him. I got closer to killing him than anybody has gotten since. And if I were still president, we'd have more than 20,000 troops there trying to kill him. Now, I've never criticized President Bush, and I don't think this is useful. But you know we do have a government that thinks Afghanistan is only as important as Iraq, or only 1/7 as important as Iraq. And you ask me about terror and al-Qaeda with the sort of dismissive thing, when all you have to do is read Richard Clarke's book to look at what we did in a comprehensive, systematic way to try to protect this country against terror. And you've got the little smirk on your face and you think you're so clever, but I had a responsibility for trying to protect this country. I tried and I failed to get bin Laden. I regret it, but I did try, and I did everything I thought I responsibly could. The entire military was against sending special forces into Afghanistan and refueling by helicopter, and no one thought we could do it otherwise, because we could not get the CIA and the FBI to certify that al-Qaeda was responsible while I was president." Condoleezza Rice's interview with the New York Post editorial board. Question: "By now I assume you've seen Bill Clinton's performances. How do you respond to his specific accusations that the 8 months before 9/11 the Bush administration, in his words, didn't even try to go after al-Qaeda?" Secretary Rice: "I just say read the 9/11 report. We went through this. We went through this argument. The fact of the matter is, I think that the 9/11 Commission got it about right. Nobody organized this country or the international community to fight the terrorist threat that was upon us until 9/11. I would be the first to say that because, you know, we didn't fight the war on terror on the way that we're fighting it now. We just weren't organized as a country, either domestically or as a leader internationally. But what we did in the 8 months was at least as aggressive as what Clinton administration did in the preceding years. In fact, it is not true that Richard Clarke was fired. Richard Clarke was a counterterrorism czar when 9/11 happened, and he left when he did not become Deputy Director of Homeland Security several months later. We were not left a comprehensive strategy to fight al-Qaeda. For instance, big pieces were missing, like an approach to Pakistan that might work, because without Pakistan, you weren't going to get Afghanistan, and there were reasons that nobody could think of actually going in and taking out the Taliban, either the Clinton administration or the Bush administration. Because it's true, you couldn't get basing rights in Uzbekistan, and that was the long pole in the tent. So I would make the divide September 11th, 2001, when the attack on this country mobilized us to fight the war on terror in a very different way. But the notion that somehow for 8 months the Bush administration sat there and didn't do that is just flatly false. And I think that the 9/11 Commission understood that. Question. So you're saying Bill Clinton is a liar? Secretary Rice. No. I'm just saying that, look, there was a lot of passion in that interview, and I would just suggest that you go back and read the 9/11 Commission report on the efforts of the Bush administration in the 8 months. Things like working to get an armed predator that actually turned out to be extraordinarily important, working to get a strategy that would allow us to get better cooperation from Pakistan and from the Central Asians, but essentially continuing the strategy that had been left to us by the Clinton administration, including with the same counterterrorism czar who was Richard Clarke. But I think this is not a very fruitful discussion because we've been through it. The 9/11 Commission has turned over every rock and we know exactly what they said.